4, please. The knackered golfist now driving.
Welcome to another random golf memory. I'm thinking about two events that I went to when I was a kid. And I'm in the Sacramento, California area. And one of them is called the Swing at Cancer. And the other one is called the Raleys Senior Gold Rush. So, from what I remember when I was a kid, I only went to this Swing at Cancer once. And it was, I think it could have been a 1-day or a 2-day event in Sacramento during the summer, like on a Monday or a Tuesday. And it was basically a Pro-Am event, as far as I remember. I remember being there with my dad and my uncle, I think, and it was held at the Del Paso Country Club in Sacramento, California. They had the 2015 U.S. Senior Open there about 5 years ago this year, which was unbelievable, and I hope to have a very similar event there again. But this tournament was a big deal because I guess it was started years ago. I mean, Bob Hope, I think, was involved in it, and it was a way for people to bring awareness to cancer. It was like a fundraising sort of charity kind of thing in the Sacramento area. And I had my first taste of carrying the leaderboard for a professional in a group. And the guy comes up to me. I could have been 13, 14 years old, something like that. I can't remember exactly what year it was. But the guy comes up to me out of nowhere. He's like, "Hey kid, you want to make $10?" And I'm like, "Sure." So he takes me to this place where they have kids sign in to carry these leaderboards for these groups that are going out. And I was a kid. I didn't really know how to score golf or anything. I mean, I learned later, but I was just a kid holding the leaderboard for this senior tour player or whatever, and he was playing with some amateurs. And the pro that they hooked me up with, his name was Lionel Hebert. It's spelled Herbert, but it's pronounced Hebert. And as far as I remember, I think he won a PGA a long time ago. It could have been in the 50s or the 60s. But that guy was a tour pro. But then the other great part about that was one of the amateurs in the group was John Brody. And John Brody, if you don't know, he was a quarterback for the 49ers. And he was an avid golfer, and he had I remember as a kid being completely blown away by how far he hit the ball. And he hit it a mile, and he was using persimmon clubs, persimmon woods. And I remember being a kid and seeing him hit the ball, and I would just be completely blown away. I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that's the greatest shot I've ever seen." But, so there's a picture that I have that I don't have in front of me, and I can't find it. It's a picture of Lionel Hebert, John Brody, and I think 2 other amateurs that are in the group, and me holding the leaderboard, peeking. My head is sort of peeking over their back shoulders, and I was in the background, and we came to this tee where, everybody had their picture taken, and Lionel Hebert was 5 over. I think it could have been after, I don't know. I'm not going to guess how far along he was in his round. But that gave me a taste of carrying the leaderboard for these professionals. And fast forward a few years, I think it was 1992 and 1993 is when I worked for the Raleys supermarket company in Sacramento, and I used to bag groceries. And it was my sort of ambition to be a part of this Raleys Senior Gold Rush golf tournament that was held at Rancho Murieta Country Club in Rancho Murieta, California. Sort of a far away sort of place that had 2 golf courses, and it was sort of like a private gated community. I was so excited to be a part of this tournament because I wanted to carry the leaderboard for some for some senior tour professionals, and I think I did it. Well, I did it 2 years, and I think I did it for every round of the weekend. So I did Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I can't remember exactly the groupings that I had, but I remember there. I mean, there was J.C. Sneed, Harold Henning, Terry Dill, Ken Still, Isao Aoki, Bob Charles. Sir Bob Charles, and Kermit Zarley. I can't remember all the guys, but I think the guys that I got the biggest excitement out of carrying the leaderboard for was J.C. Sneed, Bruce Crampton. Isao Aoki and Bob Charles, to name a few. And the thing is that you go there in the morning and you sort of show up at whatever time you're at, and that's your sort of place in line as to when you draw your name out of the hat as to what group you want. And that's the first time I mean, for me as a kid, growing up in Sacramento, the Sacramento Kings was the only sort of professional sporting event that people could go to see actually how the game is played. You know, you go there and you see professionals shooting hoops, playing basketball. That's how it's supposed to be done. And for me, going to this golf tournament was a real wake-up call for me to actually see how golf is supposed to be played. And I think the very first time I saw professional golf was probably the Swing at Cancer, but I got a really good sort of perspective on how the ball is supposed to come off the club face, that sort of trajectory that these guys hit the ball, you know, the sound that the ball makes when it hits the club, you know, the clubs that these guys are using, you know, what's the sort of in club that the senior players are using back then. And there's a whole list of things that you pay attention to, and just sort of, you know, you sort of observe what's going on, and it's like that's how it's supposed to be done. You know, that's how it's supposed to be played. And I got to see Lee Trevino for the first time. I saw Chichi Rodriguez, and Chichi that was sort of his crown jewel. They really wanted. I mean, Chichi really wanted to win the tournament, and he came close a few times. I remember he was playing. I mean, he was like full on in the lead in the last group of the day kind of thing, and I don't know what happened, but he finished like second place in the U.S. Senior Open against Jack Nicklaus. I think it could have been 1991 in Denver, Cherry Hills. I think he finished second place to that. Anyway, it was like, so he was sort of in his prime. Him and Trevino and Bob Charles, George Archer. All those guys were sort of, that was the sort of first generation senior tour as it was back in the early 90s. I mean, you had guys that were professionals way back in the 50s that were on this tour. They were shooting 78s, 79s, and 80s, you know, in the round, but they were there. I mean, one guy that comes to mind, his name was Dow Finsterwald. And I remember him because he had these guys still had their swings and they still had their shot trajectories and they were still hitting it, you know, really, really well. But I guess they couldn't really put it together on the course, and that's why they were shooting high 70s. I was thinking to myself, you know, if I could get to a level where I'm shooting bad professional golf scores, maybe I might be doing okay. So Dal Finsterwald was there, and he had this swing. He would just be hitting short to middle irons, you know, to the range. And you see the guys, how they would come to the range and they'd warm up and they'd do their talking amongst their caddies, amongst other pros, and maybe they'd talk with the gallery or whatever. And people, when I saw Lee Trevino, the first time, he had, I mean, it was amazing to watch him hit balls on the range, just because, you know, I guess on the tour nowadays, you know, each player sort of plays the brand of ball that they're sort of in contract with. And back then, every tour player hit the same ball. It was always the Titleist Tour Bellata was the practice ball of choice that those guys used to play on the range. And even Trevino, he played those top flight Z Bellatas and those top flight those balls, and he would still play the Titleist on the range. And it was really interesting how they did that, and I didn't realize that until now. But anyway, so Lee Trevino's on the range, and I think it must have been very soon after the Jimmy Swaggart sort of incident where he comes out and he says, "I have sinned, my Lord," you know. And Trevino comes out and he's like, everybody's paying attention to Trevino, and he belts out this, "I have sinned, my Lord," and everybody just lost it. Everybody was just completely amazed. I mean, Trevino's hitting, he had this outside in sort of swing that he would always be hitting the cuts and stuff. And he was full on top flight Spalding golf equipment, all the stuff that was there, and he had this this driver that it was a metal driver, had a graphite shaft, but it had this sort of graphite insert face. I think it was called the Top Flight Heat or something like that. It made a really different sound when he hit it, but he was just amazing. He was so masterful hitting those shots. And you know, same goes for Chichi Rodriguez. I mean, Chichi would not really take a practice stroke when he would practice putting and stuff like that. He would just hit the ball, and he had a really sort of old school kind of heel forged putter that was similar to the Calamity Jane Bobby Jones putter, but it had a metal shaft. But I mean, he played that. He used that on tour, and just the stuff that was going on. People were smoking cigarettes. People were smoking cigars. Oh, I had Larry Loretti once. Larry Loretti won the 1993 U.S. Senior Open. He was known for smoking the big, huge cigars like all the time, and it was so great. It was just awesome. You know, that's when golf was cool, was when the guys would be able to smoke their cigarettes and smoke their cigars. I mean, not comparing now and then, but it was just great back then. It was just great to be able to be a part of that ambiance. So, that's right now. But anyway, it was just a great tournament to be a part of. I think I got to use another video to talk about experiences I had carrying the leaderboard for certain players. So, anyway, this has been part one of the Raleys Senior Gold Rush experience on the Knackered Golfist with a random golf memory. Thanks for watching.
4, please. The Knackered Golfist now driving.